Welcome back to the Daniel's Nemesis podcast, reading chapter 27, Ginger. Reading Ginger's Nemesis podcast. Welcome, he said. Are you to the Daniel chapter?
Welcome back to the Me podcast. This chapter is called Ginger. Are you feeling okay? I'm here with my friend Ginger. Why don't you introduce yourself, Ginger?
Fuck. The blue walls again. It's been peace for such a long time.
And are you feeling okay?
No.
XBook is designed to be the greatest book of all time. I have used my knowledge of avant-garde cinema to craft this story of two people, intertwined by fate, divided by species and homes. Conflict is inevitable when no one understands each other. But importantly, do any of the characters understand their own selves first? Ginger has been torn apart by a bloody war, and his mind is still processing, recovering, as he is thrown into this new theatre of war. William is falling down the rabbit hole of compromise, not knowing what his own position is anymore, at a time when he really needs to be the leader. It's an amazing chapter. You've heard the story this far, so you know that Ginger has found his way onto the Trascon mothership.
I can't wait to find out what happens to me.
Oscar Wilde said that the true purpose of art is to have no function. This is the novelization of that quote. Please remember, this is fiction, always fiction. Logic is as logic does.
Are you feeling okay? General notes.
If you can't beat them, join them. The old git keeps finding his way in, so to avoid that little situation, it's going to be me. So, surrealism is a freeing of the unconscious mind, often through a juxtaposition of images. As André Breton, one of the founders of surrealism, said in his 1924 Manifesto of Surrealism, surrealism is to resolve the previously contradictory conditions of dream and reality into an absolute reality, a super reality. In other words, surreality. God, reading this shit out is boring. How does the other guy do it? Look, this is a surreal chapter. You can't look for themes or some kind of aesthetic. That's not the point. It doesn't matter why Ginger is in a particular place. It exists to be there. It's a reflection of life through some very oddly tinted glasses. The only question posed is, what does it mean to you? Well, anyway, Ginger. I like Ginger. I don't understand why there aren't more literary characters like him. I mean, yeah, we get surrealist stories, and there are surreal movies and surreal books. And in these, the whole world conforms to a surrealist vision. Un chien andalou. Virginia Woolf, sometimes. But there are few stories where only one character is surreal in a normal world. Scrubs, Ally McBeal, but that was all twee and clearly daydreams. I think only Orlando by Virginia Woolf comes close to having a surreal character in a recognizable world. Except Ginger doesn't turn into a woman. He's unique in literature. He creates worlds around him, and of course, they are all metaphorical. What do you think, Ginger?
I have no idea what you are talking about. You talk about me as if you created me.
I did.
Then who the fuck am I? I've been stuck here in this void. All I can do is think about my life. I was a pilot. That's murky. Then I'm told about aliens. I get ready to fight them, then I'm here. I hear about myself. What the fuck? I'm running around in a spaceship? I chopped my Mr. Robinson off. Who the fuck am I? What happened before the murkiness?
Well, this is the beauty of you. There is nothing known about you before the war, because that's up to the reader to infer. Or just make up. I don't tell. I would never do anything so crass.
But I need to know. I don't care about any reader. I need to know.
Look, you just go into surreal places. You explore the feral, untamed desire. Why don't you do that now?
I see blue walls. In front of me is someone that I hate.
How about I suggest something? That seemed to work before. Desert. Not had you in a desert yet. Isolation, emptiness, desperation. What can we get from that? A search. You are empty in some way. You need to find something to fill you up, to get rid of that void within you.
That's it? Again? How is this different from any other place that you've put me?
Come on, Ginger, let's play. Where are you going to take me today?
He's not your fucking pet.
What are you doing here? I banned you.
What? You think you can get involved and I won't? I found your back door. It was wide open once I knew where to look.
And I can do this.
It's about creativity. When I edit, I make creative choices. That's when you enter. And when you started planning what you wanted to say, well, you moved in on my territory.
Doesn't explain the last episode, though, does it? Boom!
As Michael Richardson says, surrealism is always about departures rather than arrivals.
Surrealism and Cinema, 2006.
So, who cares how I arrived back in my own podcast? And I really want to get to the departure now.
This is my fucking book! How dare you tear it apart all the time?
And how is any of your fighting helping me out? Ginger, this is about him. All of this is about him. Too bloody right. In terms of revelations, Ginger seems to be having a big one. One that he's definitely skirted around before, if not outright addressed before. But I'm desperate here, so I'm going to put this in as one of the revelations that John Truby talks about. Ginger doesn't know who he is. As he says, part of him is hiding, and it's like there are words missing, and he's filling in the gaps. Yeah, that's right. Right now, though, I've missed the whole fucking page.
No! He's the aberrant character.
In what? In European cinema? That's our dissertation title. And fuck awful that dissertation was. You had no idea what you were writing about. You were just given a title by our instructor because he didn't like us comparing early European cinema with Hollywood cinema with a focus on anti-narrative in European cinema. Yeah, we wanted to explore more artistic means of telling a story. But you ended up writing about something you didn't understand and had no real interest in. So to bring that back up now is moronic. You still have no idea what an aberrant character is. You have zero ideas on how to write any character. You're a fucking joke, and your fucking joke writing killed this.
Well, go on then. Who is Ginger? You've had more time to think. You clearly understand the subject more, so tell us, who is Ginger?
Ginger is a weak character. I'm sorry, but it's true. You're a nice guy. People build up empathy towards you, I hope. I never expected them to relate to you, but I wanted them to have some sympathies with your plight. But you're not well written. The situations around you are written, and in some cases very well written.
Thank you!
But you, Ginger, are barely written. You're the equivalent of a computer game character, an avatar. You're placed in these fantastic worlds, but all the controller can do, or will do, is make you run around in circles. Somehow you get to the end of a level, and the next world is loaded in, and you are forced to run around in circles again.
He's a dream character. He's what we're like in our dreams.
No. Your dreams, perhaps. Ours. But for him to function in a narrative story, he needs to be in a lucid dream. One where he has some control over what is happening to him. Not the deep sleep dream that you have placed him in, where we crawl through mud, or our clothes disappear, or the whole world is out of control.
Ginger is an instinctual character. A drifter, but instinctual.
Then what are his instincts? Are they consistent?
They are ever-changing. It's surrealism. It's about the moment, not some theme being explored. Ginger is an aberrant character.
We're back to the dissertation. Well, let's have a look at that. To give you some context, this is what I wrote about the aberrant character.
In conclusion, I feel that although the worlds that these characters are in help to shape them as aberrant characters, they still play an important function in the way that the world works. Many of these characters have in some way shocked the society around them, and yet they cannot be disposed of or ignored easily. They continue to exist and to function within the confines that the society around them tries to place around them. Not only this, but we find that the directors become drawn to them, focus on them as characters within the film. They may not always be the central character, but they still play a very prominent part in the film. They are never secondary characters, as the mise en scene very often helps to frame them, to draw comparisons to the world surrounding them. In this instance, they are disguised. They are able to fit into the surrounding world, and pass unnoticed. However, this does not usually last until the end of the film, where their disguise is often torn away. However, the mise en scene can also show them to be the complete opposite to the world around the aberrant character, making them stand out and isolated. In this instance, they have no disguise, and therefore, it is easier for the society to find them objectionable. There is one area that the aberrant character will never conform, and that is thematically, or moralistically. They will always stand in opposition to the standards that supports the world around them. Although the aberrant character may choose not to conform, or may have no choice about not conforming, and being thrust into this role, they will never be fully accepted by the society around them. Fault will always be found with the aberrant character. It is through assertion and repetition of themes and motifs that cause the character to stand out. They will have their own views and opinions, which although they may not realize it, stand in opposition. The aberrant character is, therefore, an entirely oppositional character. How the auteur will choose to define the aberrant character throughout the course of the film is up to their own interpretation of the character.
You dug that out. Not exactly spur of the moment, is it?
None of this is, and someone needs to be prepared. That was the conclusion of our own dissertation, looking at Lang, Pabst, Tarkovsky and Buñuel in particular, how the director is drawn to aberrant characters in European cinema. What is described there can be interpreted as a fish out of water character, or even an anti-hero. But how exactly do your aberrant characters differ from the fish out of water or the anti-hero?
Aberrant is a broad term. It encompasses many different character types and roles.
The main point is that the aberrant character stands in opposition to the world. We can't say that Ginger stands against the values of his world. He doesn't know many values. After all, we haven't given him many. He does his duty when asked, and that's very conformist. He doesn't want to get married. Well, outwardly, that may be a bit aberrant. However, this being a time when people married due to societal pressures, inwardly, how many people were actually unhappy to be married? At a time of great patriotic duty, he is anti-war and he becomes a pacifist. Well, can't he be? He's suffered. How many soldiers, after that war, came away full of the joy of doing their patriotic duty? Superficially, he may appear aberrant, but only to our, at least my own, stereotypes and poorly conceived perceptions of that time. I won't go into the anti-hero. Firstly, I just think it doesn't apply to Ginger. There once was a time when a hero was straight as a die and had no flaws. Probably he wore white in contrast to the baddie's black. Most heroes have a flaw. This flaw is designed and on purpose. The flaw is there to make them interesting, and often it's an obstacle to their immediate success in the story. More recently, this flaw has explored moral or legal values, creating the modern anti-hero. But in terms of morals and bending the law, this has been going on in storytelling for much longer than most of us realize. I avoid anti-hero analysis as it's too broad, too vague, and ultimately not of interest to me. As for the fish out of water, well, no. If anything, he pushes the reader into being the fish out of water and is more of an audience surrogate in that respect. He is as alien to many of the worlds he finds himself in as we are. And he is literally an alien in these previous couple of chapters, as he is the sole human among a civilization of Trascons. Back in the dream worlds, he is observing, watching, and reacting. Sometimes he goes into a visualization, following some action, some form of logic that we never quite catch up on. But the degree to which he's a part of these worlds doesn't matter, as soon the worlds cease to exist.
And isn't that true of most dreams that we have? Fuck, many of the dreams I had were written in. The logic Ginger follows is the logic of whatever my unconscious was concocting. And they have an impact on the real world, on his dealings with people.
Fine. But in the real world that he inhabits, he is established, and indeed establishment. He is in charge of a squadron. He is higher in the ranks of the military than the men he commands. He has many dealings with the flight lieutenant, and despite the way that he acts, none of these actually suggest a fish out of water character. If anything, these dialogues were written for comedy value. Back then, I didn't have exactly much in the way of funny bones.
We talked about this. You talked about this. The motivations behind the dialogue was changed. This added new elements.
But outwardly, people hear what is said to them. They don't know the inner machinations of Ginger. The conversations, poorly written, were functional conversations. The meanings were passed on to the recipient, who was able to respond with minimal confusion. So an audience surrogate, an avatar, is perhaps the closest we get in terms of how Ginger functions. Someone to explore dreamlike visions as a real story happens in parallel and by coincidence. It's a strange choice of function for a main character. He's just someone that we can travel with as we all journey through these dreamscapes. But none of this gets us any closer to who Ginger actually is.
Wait, what about the rest? Like the mise-en-scène defining the character. Comparisons with the world surrounding them.
You were obsessed with world building and difficult or different narratives. One thing you never understood was character. How to make one unique, how to put them into a story, how to write dialogue, how to make someone on the page seem real. And arguably, I still continue this today. I still prioritize weirdness over actual form. What makes it worse, though, was at this time we wrote this dissertation on character that had nothing to do with character. Yes, you wanted to write about anti-narratives. The choice wasn't ours. We looked at the film world and the framing of the character as making a statement about the character. What we didn't understand was that the statement about the character becomes irrelevant if we don't understand who the character is. To compound this, we were also doing drama at university. That's all about fully understanding character. We had all this at our fingertips and nothing sank in.
That's it? I'm a shit writer?
That's it? I'm a shit character? Not even a person, a thing. There is much to be said for what I have done in terms of my approach to writing. Some of it is actually interesting. My writing is bold, if the term experimental gives my writing too much credit. Indeed, I've formed a podcast around it. I did understand filmic techniques more than character motivations and story structure. But the challenge right now is to get to the core of Ginger. We've established what Ginger isn't. So, what we are left is with who Ginger is. Time. Exploring Ginger's motivations and trying to find out who he actually is something that we need to do next time. So I'm just discarded once more. Do I matter at all to you? I'm just another character at the mercy of your wills and with no agency? No needs of my own, like to get the fuck out of this place? I mean, yes. That's kind of the point. Fuck all of you. This story is about to destroy itself. To understand why, we needed to have explored these issues today. So, what do we have to look forward to in the next episode? Appropriately, Ginger plays a computer game. Until then, TTFN.